Once there lived a girl named Precious. She had a close friend named Blessing, and together they shared a room in college. Precious was known for her intelligence and kindness, and she soon caught the eye of a young man named John. They bonded over their shared interests and quickly started dating. One evening, John decided to surprise Precious with a visit to her dorm. However, when he arrived, he found Blessing alone in the room. Blessing greeted him with a sly smile and told him that Precious had gone to visit her other boyfriend. Angry and upset by this revelation, John felt a surge of betrayal. Sensing his vulnerability, Blessing saw an opportunity to fulfill her own desires. She had always harbored a secret crush on John. That night, she told him that she had always loved him. In his moment of confusion and anger, John gave in. They ended up spending time together. As dawn broke, John was filled with regret and guilt. He urged Blessing not to tell anyone about their indiscretion, fearing the fallout it would cause. Blessing, although disappointed by his reaction, agreed to keep the secret. Later that day, John met up with Precious as planned. To his shock and confusion, Precious greeted him warmly and mentioned she had been visiting her parents back in the village. There was no mention of a sugar daddy. Realization dawned on John. Blessing had lied to him. She had deceived him to take advantage of his emotions. John's heart sank as he grappled with the truth. He had been tricked by Blessing's deceit and had betrayed the trust of the woman he loved. Gathering his courage, John decided to come clean to Precious. He confessed everything that had happened the previous night, revealing Blessing's lies and his own moment of weakness. Precious was heartbroken and stunned by the revelation. She took some time to process the betrayal from both her best friend and her boyfriend. After much reflection, she decided that she needed space to heal and think about her future. Despite the painful revelation, Precious and John continued their relationship as if nothing had happened. They focused on their future together, with John reassuring Precious of his love and commitment. Meanwhile, Blessing, driven by her lingering feelings for John, made several attempts to convince him to leave Precious for her. However, John firmly refused, his heart unwavering in its loyalty to Precious. As their bond grew stronger, John decided it was time for Precious to meet his family. He took her to his family home, where she was warmly welcomed by his parents and siblings. They were charmed by her grace and kindness, and it seemed like everything was falling into place. That night, as Precious lay in bed at John's family home, she heard the creak of the door. Initially, she thought it was John coming to check on her. To her shock, it was John's father, Mr. Anderson, standing in the doorway. "Mr. Anderson, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of confusion and fear. He stepped into the room with a smirk. "I've come to talk to you, Precious. You see, I don't think you're suitable for my son." Precious sat up, her heart pounding. "I don't understand. Your family accepted me." Mr. Anderson's expression darkened. "You will never be part of this family if you refuse me. I can make sure this marriage never happens." She glared at him, anger bubbling up inside her. "Get out of my room right now, or I will tell John about this." He chuckled, pulling out a stack of cash. "Take this money, Precious. It's a generous offer. Forget about John and make your life easier." Precious stood her ground. "I love John, and no amount of money will change that. Leave, or I will expose you." Mr. Anderson's face twisted with rage. "If you refuse me, I'll make sure you regret it. This marriage will not happen." Precious felt a surge of determination. "We'll see about that. Now get out." Without any knowledge of what was happening between Precious and his father, John proposed to Precious, and the marriage preparations began immediately. The couple was overjoyed, and their families, despite the recent tensions, came together to support them. The village buzzed with excitement over the upcoming wedding. However, Blessing, still harboring feelings for John, was unable to accept the situation. She approached John one last time, her voice tinged with desperation. "John, if you go through with this wedding, I'll do something you'll regret." John, frustrated and tired of her persistent interference, replied firmly, "Blessing, my decision is made. I'm marrying Precious. Nothing you say or do will change that." 2 days before the wedding, a dark cloud descended over the joyous occasion. Precious went missing without a trace, sending John and their families into a frantic search. They combed through every corner of the village and beyond, but there was no sign of her. Meanwhile, Precious found herself in an abandoned house, bound and surrounded by 8 men with sinister intentions. They brutally abused and beat her, leaving her bleeding and barely conscious on the cold, dusty floor. The room echoed with their cruel laughter as they left her to suffer. Despite her pain, Precious clung to a glimmer of hope. She knew she had to survive, not just for herself, but for John and the future they had planned together. Summoning every ounce of strength, she managed to crawl to a corner of the room where she found a broken shard of glass. With painstaking effort, she used it to cut through her bindings. Back in the village, John was frantic. He refused to rest, determined to find Precious. As he retraced their steps and interviewed anyone who might have seen her, he came across a clue that led him to the abandoned house on the outskirts of the village. Precious lay on the cold, hard floor of the abandoned house, her body hurting and her hope fading. She could barely move and felt as if all hope of rescue had slipped away. Each passing moment seemed to drain her remaining strength, leaving her teetering on the edge of despair. Back in the village, everyone was worried and searching for Precious. John, along with friends and family, refused to give up the search for her. Days turned into a blur of searching, questioning, and sleepless nights filled with worry and dread. 3 days passed since Precious went missing. The villagers, though tired, kept looking. A search party made its way to the edge of the village, where an old, abandoned house stood. As they got closer, they noticed a strange, bad smell in the air. They bravely entered the old house, even though it was dark and scary. The smell got worse as they moved through the building, leading them to a small, dimly lit room. What they found shocked them. Precious lay on the floor, badly hurt and covered in dried blood. She was barely conscious, her breaths shallow and weak. The sight was heart-wrenching. John, who was among the searchers, rushed to her side, tears streaming down his face. "Precious, we're here! Hold on, please!" he cried, his voice full of emotion.